This is the Rip and Read featuring Curtis Sliwa. Now to the Bernard McGurk studios of 77 WABC and Curtis Sliwa.
So the 2 hours of Brian Kilmeade once again bifurcated. 1 hour for Sid, 1 hour for Curtis. Plus there's a Rip and Read today, 12 to 1. You don't want to miss it, with my wife Nancy. Oh boy, are we cold busting. The Department of Education, a.k.a. dumbest organization ever, House of Anti-Semitism, and the mayor himself, Eric Adams, whose own words will sink a ship. But before we get to that, I noticed Justin Ellick and Lou Ruffino that Sid Rosenberg has announced that he's going on a vacation. And there's no doubt that when you look at the analytics, the ratings, Sid is far and away the ratings leader here at WABC, and I'm second. I'm in second place. But that may all change all of a sudden, because Sid has been extolling my virtues on a regular basis as I join him every Monday through Friday at about 7:15.
With the great Curtis Sliwa, big ratings on the Rip and Read, noon to 1 every weekday afternoon, overnight weekends, and does a tremendous job daily with me right here.
In WABC, the acronym oftentimes is always Broadcasting Curtis. There's a break in the ranks here, Justin Ellick, from his landsman, Judge Weinberg, who has his own show right after mine on Sunday mornings from 6 to 7. Listen to what he had to say about me.
This is Let the Record Show. I'm joined today with my good friend, the legendary Curtis Sliwa, the best radio host on all of WABC, I must say, and somebody who's a legend in his own time, deservedly so.
You call me the best. You heard that, Justin? In fact, I want that truncated here, Lou. Let's hear it in its truncated form.
The best radio host on all of WABC, I must say.
Judge Weinberg. Who would argue with Judge Weinberg, right? He's the last authority. When you go into court, you're in chains and shackles. You're going to argue with the judge? He was a judge for 20 years. And this is Sid Rosenberg's landsman. He's turned against his landsman to side with a righteous Gentile. Now, I wish I could say it's because of my ability. It's not. Sid has persevered. He's way ahead in the race, but what he doesn't have, and no one here at WABC has, I have, and it's the secret weapon of broadcasting, my wife, Nancy Sliwa, who, as an e-attorney, does the deep dive. Now, Danielle, they're celebrating their 32nd anniversary. Mazel tov, mazel tov. I'm saving the glasses. Me and Nancy, we hope to break it on their 50th anniversary. But Danielle is not an e-attorney. She doesn't do the deep dive. She does all kinds of law, and she's great at what she does. But nobody's better in the field of e-law than Nancy. She does a deep dive, and man, when she is on your case, oh my God. So let me take you, hours ago, it was about 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'm finally getting some sleep because I want to be here before 6 o'clock in the morning because I got to listen to Sid and then follow up on what he says at 7:15. And so I'm finally sleeping, and I hear this voice that's like,
wake up, wake up. Wake up, Curtis, wake up.
And she's like yelling in my ear because she doesn't want to wake up the cats who were snoozing. And it's like, she says, you gotta hear what I just found. You gotta hear what I just found coming out of the mouth of Eric Adams. And she puts it up on the big screen. And I'm like half stunned God. I'm like, oh my God, this better be good. Oh my God, ladies and gentlemen, it wasn't just good. This proves the case that we have a mayor who vacillates between claiming he's friends of whites and Jews to being maybe at times their worst enemy, as he was many, many years ago when he was making his bones as a follower of Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam. This was yesterday. Department of Education meeting. Dumbest organization ever. Chancellor Banks in charge. The House of Anti-Semitism. They spend $36 billion of our city budget. That's 1/3 of the city budget. And the mayor is talking to all of them.
I mean, what are we thinking about? We have a city with all of these different nationalities, all of these different languages. The brain development of a child would acquire a different language at an early age better than waiting until they become an adult. And we're not leaning into that. That's the arrogance of a European mindset that the only language that should be known is one language, English. These babies should learn all these different languages to communicate with each other.
European mindset? That's the language of Farrakhan and the anti-Semites over the years. European mindset. Could I hear it in a short drop there, Lou, please? Short drop, please.
That's the arrogance of a European mindset that the only language that should be known is one language, English.
Man. When I finally got the cobwebs out of my head and I heard that, I said, oh, my God, this takes me back to 1968. Ocean Hill, Brownsville. Some of you who are baby boomers, you remember how divisive it was. They had tried before that forced integration, busing. I'll get to that momentarily. And it hadn't worked. So now you had these African-centric blacks led by the Brooklyn core leader, Sonny Carson, who were demanding that all the white Jewish teachers be kicked out of the schools in black neighborhoods. They be replaced by blacks who are Pan-Africanists, and that the language that be chosen to be spoken is Swahili. Now, other than maybe Kenya, I don't know where the hell Swahili is spoken. But they insisted on that. They insisted on that. Eric Adams knows that. When you use that term European English, it's not just a term about whites. It's a term about Ashkenazi Jews. Come on, Eric. I know you guys are listening at City Hall. I guess he slipped back to his Farrakhan speak, huh? And then Albert Shanker, who was the head of the UFT, very liberal, very progressive Democrat, said enough is enough, and he called a teacher strike. And the predominantly UFT, predominantly white and Jewish then, as it is now, most of the retirees are white and Jewish, walked out. And they said, we're not going to tolerate this. You're kicking white Jewish teachers out. We've tried our best with all children to teach them the 4 R's, reading, writing, arithmetic, and the most important R, respect. And oh my God, there was the Ford Foundation, the richest philanthropy in the world, richest. Henry Ford, the biggest anti-Semite who ever walked the face of the earth other than Adolf Hitler. Yeah, every week he had a newspaper filled with anti-Semitism in Dearborn, Michigan, right outside of Detroit. Oh, Dearborn, that's the house of anti-Semitism now with Talibi. And they funded this attempt to make these schools black-centric, to kick out white Jewish teachers. Shame on you. Shame on you, Eric Adams. It's your own words that are going to sink your boat here. But you didn't stop there. No, you didn't stop there. He continued about the books that the children are provided in the school system at taxpayers' expense.
The reason Chancellor Banks and his team wanted to change the books that our children read, because the authors do not look like them, do not know their narratives, and do not appreciate the diversity that comes with developing the full personhood of a child.
So I guess we got to get rid of To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee, which talks about the Deep South and the lawyer who came to the defense of an African American. I guess we got to forget that. Mm-hmm. The Great Gatsby, F. Scott Fitzgerald about Long Island. 1984, George Orwell, which is what increasingly your police department is using the tactics with these drones spying on people. of Mice and Men, John Steinbeck. What, the children shouldn't have that as part of their reading list? Heart of Darkness, Joseph Conrad, The Stranger, Albert Camus. Well, I can go on and on and on. Could I hear that cut again, Lou? I specifically want to hear that cut about the books that Eric Adams and Chancellor Banks are swapping out of the school libraries and making available to the children in their growth process as they work their way through high school.
The reason Chancellor Banks and his team wanted to change the books that our children read, because the authors do not look like them, do not know their narratives, and do not appreciate the diversity that comes with developing the full personhood of a child.
Who found that cut? Nancy. Wants to change. He didn't say add to. I can understand add to. Yeah, you want to have some people of color, Hispanics, blacks, Asians, authors that may have not been part of the reading list before. No, change the reading list. Change. You better wake up out there, all of you who think that Eric Adams loves white people and Jews. Because he really doesn't. I know his roots. I knew that for years he followed Farrakhan and Conrad Muhammad to the mosque in Harlem. The Nation of Islam supported his first political effort to run against Congressman Major Owens. And you know why he was running against him? Because Major Owens was too friendly to Jews. That was the rationale. Farrakhan endorsed him. Let him deny it. And the Nation of Islam collected signatures for him. And the only reason he didn't go the whole 9 yards and become a member of the Nation of Islam is Farrakhan told him that, hey, we'll support your effort financially, but you got to do what Muhammad Ali did when he was Cassius Clay. You got to convert and join us. And Eric Adams, to his credit, decided, I'm not going the whole 9 yards like Muhammad Ali went. Because Farrakhan said, that's the way we'll fund your effort. If you become one of us, a member of the NOI, Nation of Islam, we'll fund your congressional run against Major Owens. And then Eric Adams got cold feet. Thank God he did. But that's his orientation, ladies and gentlemen. He wants to change the books, swap out all the books written by whites. He wants to do away with European English. Those are his own words. What's he going to replace it with? Everybody wants to speak English all over the world in third world countries. It is the language of computers. It is the language of business. It is the international language. And he wants to say it's European English. For years, that was code language for white Ashkenazi taught English by Jewish teachers. You see, Eric, I grew up just as you did. I got a few years on you. But I remember 1968, Ocean Hill, Brownsville. I remember Sonny Carson. I remember the Ford Foundation. I remember Albert Shanker, who was so shocked because he had been out there during the civil rights era. He couldn't believe it. And he said, that's it. Enough is enough. You're not kicking out Jewish teachers. You anti-Semites, you're not running us out of our schools. We're calling a strike, and he did. And you can't change that history. But wait, when we come back, there's more. There's more. Oh, here's Lady Gaga. I would call her the princess of the month dedicated to pride. Wouldn't you, Justin Ellick? A lot of followers of her, gays, lesbian, transgenders. She actually called her followers at one time my little monsters. She's great. There's no doubt about it. Don't like her politics. She's great. But in this video about the telephone, Beyonce has a cameo appearance. I don't know if you ever saw it, Justin or Lou, where Beyonce is locking her up. And my God, if that's not a homoerotic video, I don't know what is. Oh, man, you got to check it out. Anyway, they're both great in this, but the reason I'm playing it is because Michael Bloomberg, who himself failed with the Department of Education, dumbest organization ever, we'll get to that momentarily, has actually written an op-ed piece in which I'm in total agreement with him. But before we go into that direction, let us get back, if we can, Lou Rufino, because I know what's happening right now. The telephone is ringing and singing. You got to fire Curtis. You got to suspend him. He's got to buck and bow. He's got to apologize. He's got to retract these statements. No, these are the words of Eric Adams. This was made yesterday at a meeting of the Department of Education. The acronym stands for dumbest organization ever. Amongst their elite members who are overpaid, some teachers, some children. It was a packed meeting. The mayor of the city of New York said this side by side with his chancellor of the Department of Education, Banks, who was nodding his head vigorously in agreement. So I just want to review it because I know what's going to happen, Justin. You're going to say, oh, that's a result of AI, artificial intelligence, which some people do. There's no doubt about that. But that's about as bogus as the arguments against what we have seen of the deterioration of President Joe Biden as he shuffles along and at times freezes and is lost. The opposition has said, oh, no. Those videos, those photos are photoshopped. They're altered. It's really not Joe Biden. It's a disgrace that his enemies would do that. You see, that's always the fallback. When you look at something and you can see it for yourself, they'll tell you that what you're looking at is altered. And they will tell you now, the Adams administration and his dwindling number of supporters in this city, that what you just heard, discovered by my wife Nancy in the wee hours in the morning, his own words, his own speech before the Department of Education, dumbest organization ever, with his own chancellor nodding in agreement next to him like a bobblehead doll, is not the result of artificial intelligence. And just to qualify it as such, I'm going to play you the longer version of what Nancy discovered when she did the deep dive of Eric Adams saying, why is it that our children have to learn European English?
It is unbelievable that we believe children should only learn English in our school system. I mean, what are we thinking about? We have a city with all of these different nationalities, all of these different languages. The brain development of a child would acquire a different language at an early age better than waiting until they become an adult. And we're not leaning into that. That's the arrogance of a European mindset that the only language that should be known is one language, English. These babies should learn all these different languages.
Arrogance of the European mindset. Over the ages, Farrakhan and other anti-Semites have used that word when they don't want to necessarily say Jews. It's like those who protest and they're out there from the river to the sea. They don't say Jews, they say Zionists. Everybody understands that means white Ashkenazi teachers who would teach you. Let's get the drop on that if we can, Lou.
That's the arrogance of a European mindset that the only language that should be known is one language, English.
And then I want to play a few of the other cuts because he does not want anybody to know this. I wouldn't be surprised if the Adams administration takes this video down or makes it unavailable to members of the press. Room 9 at City Hall. They're trying to actually push reporters out of Room 9. But here he goes with his playing the race card, which is what Eric Adams has always done as Brooklyn Borough president, as mayor, as state senator, as black-centric cop, 100 blacks in law enforcement, and before that, big supporter of Louis Farrakhan. Listen to how he describes a public educational school system.
I cannot help believe that if the educational system were failing children of other ethnicities, you will see a total dismantling of the educational system. We were dispendable.
Dispendable? Does he mean expendable? Lou, you need to play that again because dispendable. I mean, that's something that would be a faux pas. That would be a spoonerism, malaprops that I would normally say, but he really means expendable. Could you play that one again, Lou? Please.
I cannot help believe that if the educational system were failing children of other ethnicities, you will see a total dismantling of the educational system. We were dispendable.
Dispendable. Expendable, I believe he meant to say. So basically, as if this were happening to Asian and white children, there would be no tolerance for that. But it's happening to predominantly black and Hispanic children, so there's tolerance. Again, that's a form of prejudice that recently has been exerted against Asians for doing so well in the school system. Comrade Bill de Blasio tried to eliminate the specialized tests, and the Asians organized and fought back, and rightfully so. It's a meritocracy. You work hard, right? You study hard. Your parents encourage you to study. And maybe if you're from a broken home or you don't have good guidance at home, you need substitutes to sort of guide you along the way. That can all be provided. But don't divide the races as Eric Adams always loves to do. Between Asians and whites on one side, you heard him very clearly, his own words, and blacks and Hispanics on the other side. And then he said something. I don't know what he meant by this. Well, maybe Lou, maybe Justin, maybe our audience can figure this out. His story is not our story.
His story is not our story.
What does he mean by his? There was no further explanation in his diatribe before the Department of Education, dumbest organization ever. Could I hear that one more time? Because tomorrow I'm going to ask Sid. Maybe he's referring to Sid, who's become as vociferous a critic as I have become.
His story is not our story.
Now, apparently his might refer to a lot of people. The publication City and State has now published people who would have been on Eric Adams' haters list. And you can imagine Justin Ellick. I'm on it. Sid Rosenberg should be definitely nominated on it. And there are a whole bunch of others. There's socialists, there's Democrats mostly, but he actually keeps a haters list. People who hate him. Now, Sid, to his credit, he likes him personally. He just hates that he does nothing about these problems and pontificates, says the right things, but doesn't do anything. Oh, man. And then he told another whopper yesterday, people who were in this meeting, Department of Education, dumbest organization ever, know damn well that this was my issue in the last campaign against Eric Adams.
I was the sole candidate on the campaign trail that said we're not removing school safety agents from our schools that protect our babies, that we heard from them over and over again that they wanted a better relationship with their school safety agents in the police department.
You know why I say never trust any politicians, Democrats or Republicans, because they believe, and I've been in the company of Democrats and Republicans who believe that you're all stupid. That, in fact, you can't remember anything that was told to you 5 seconds before, 5 minutes before, 5 days, 5 weeks, 5 months, 5 years before. They truly believe that, Democrats and Republicans, that they are your sheep herders and your sheep. First off, if you go back to the general election, which I lost Eric Adams fair and square, I was constantly at rallies advocating the hiring of more school authority agents who are under the jurisdiction of the NYPD. They wear almost a quasi-police uniform, although they don't have police powers. I was constantly saying that. Justin Ellick, why don't you do a quick Google check and look at how Eric Adams actually took money out of the budget to let go, to lay off school security agents, and then because of the tremendous blowback he got from parents and the UFT and other educators, he put some of it back, not all of it back. Could I hear that one more time, Lou, about how he was the only candidate?
I was the sole candidate on the campaign trail that said we're not removing school safety agents from our schools that protect our babies, that we heard from them over and over again that they wanted a better relationship with their school safety agents in the police department.
By the way, why does this guy always refer to children as babies, if you notice? They could be in high school, they're your babies. They could be in junior high school, they're your babies. They can be in elementary school, they're your babies. I've got 3 sons who've been educated in public school. They're not babies. They're not babies. They're young adults. And they need security. They need additional security. Now, here we have a huge op-ed piece. Michael Bloomberg, the former mayor who served 8 years and then bribed his way to serve another 4 years. The proponent of term limits decided term limits for all of you, but not for me. I'm going to bribe my way into an additional 4 years. And he did. And for the most part, he had a stable mayoralty of 12 years following on the 8 great years of Rudy Giuliani. A lot of it, you got to give credit to Ray Kelly. Ray Kelly was at the helm for 12 years. And to his credit, Michael Bloomberg did not interfere with police operations because Michael Bloomberg admitted he's not a street guy. He knows nothing about the streets other than Wall Street, where he's become a billionaire many times over. But there was that moment in his administration, I remember. He was at one of his many cocktail parties with the rich and famous, the Robin Leach would portray, lifetimes of the rich and famous. And he looked across the room to a publisher of magazines, which nobody reads anymore. You can go online. Very few people get to hard copy. Her name, you may have remembered, was Kathy Black. She had no educational experience whatsoever. None. And he said, how'd you like to be chancellor of the new Department of Education? In charge of 1.1 million students with 1,600 public schools. And the reason he chose her, you know what the reason was, Justin Ellick? Because Oprah loved her. So if Oprah Winfrey loved Kathy Black, that would make her a candidate to be the chancellor of the Department of Education. And let me tell you what a disaster it was. And it was doomed to failure. She went to Brooklyn Tech. They were having a evening meeting of parents. And there were all kinds of problems because there's not enough space in the schools at the time. There was overcrowding. So she's the brand new chancellor. It's 2011. I'll never forget it. She gets on the stage. They have the biggest school in the United States, Brooklyn Tech. The biggest. In fact, John Catsimatidis is a proud alumni. Anthony Weiner. We can go right down a laundry list of all those who've graduated from Brooklyn Tech over the years. By the way, probably one of the first high schools, especially high schools, that was totally integrated. Blacks, Hispanics, whites, Asians. Now it's mostly Asians because, again, it's a meritocracy. They're doing the best. But I will tell you this. It was an absolute disaster. She comes out on the stage, and you know what her answer to overcrowding was, Justin Ellick? She's saying, well, maybe parents ought to be using more birth control. She thought that was funny. Didn't go over well with that audience. She got booed on the stage. And then later on at another gathering, because the parents wanted to see who's this new woman in charge of the biggest public school system in the United States, appointed by Michael Bloomberg, Kathy Black, who replaced Joe Klein. And again, she was asked about the lack of classroom space, and she said, making decisions about satisfying the need for classroom space is like making many Sophie's choices. Oh, my God, Sophie's Choices. I hope they let the kids read this book in school, because they want to remove all literature that's been written by white people. But that was the mother who was forced to choose which of her children would be killed in the concentration camp of Auschwitz. I mean, come on, how dense. This woman soon had to resign. It was a dismal failure, but I do like the op-ed piece that former billionaire Mayor Michael Bloomberg wrote about the need to take cell phones away from the kids in schools. I can't tell you how many arguments I've had, mostly with mothers. Mothers insist, I need to know where my child is at all times. I need to be able to track them. I got it. If there's ever a 9/11 again, I need to be able to call my child. And they say, when my child. By the way, the towers had toppled, World Trade Center 1 and 2, and there was no cell phone communication. So that's bogus. Cell phone communication was down for days in many instances. And so children are able to take their cell phones into the class. And let me tell you something. There are cyberbullying going on like you can't believe, man. Kids are looking across that classroom and they're picking on that kid and they're bullying him on the phones. They're bullying him. They're flash mobbing kids outside, beating them up. They need to do what Bloomberg did. That's the one good thing he did with the Department of Education. You had to check your phone in before your class. In fact, there were many entrepreneurs who would keep a wagon outside, that would normally sell burritos. No, they would house your cell phone for like $1. You give them your cell phone, they would put it in a little compartment, and you get it back at the end of the day. It was good for the business. It was good for the students. It was good for everyone concerned. And then all of a sudden, who changed that? Comrade Bill de Blasio, the part-time mayor, the dope from Park Slope, him and his crooked wife, who destroyed what was a working system. And now let's hope, because Bloomberg has mentored Eric Adams and Chancellor Banks. He's mentored them. Hopefully, they will see the handwriting is on the wall that if you want to get control of the schools because they're out of control, and you're not going to hire more school safety agents, which Eric Adams and Chancellor Banks are not going to do, even though they have a $36 billion budget, 1/3 of the bloated city budget of $108 billion. $36 billion. You think as taxpayers we're getting our money's worth? You think families are getting their money's worth? You think the children are getting their money's worth? Absolutely not. But let's hope that Bloomberg says, hey guys, this administration is turning into a complete disaster. I supported you, Eric Adams. I supported you, Chancellor Banks. I got my wealthy friends to bankroll you. How about, let's go old school, when I was in charge of the city and I enforced the ban on cell phones in the public school system, in elementary schools, junior high schools, and high schools. That would be the right thing to do. And I know there are a lot of mamas out there, I need to stay in touch with my... We never had any phones when we were kids. We would walk outside and we wouldn't come back until it was dark out. They had no way of tracking us. I'm not suggesting that's the way it should be when your kids are outdoors and they're not in school. But when they're in school, they're safe and secure. They don't need to be Mama Luke's calling Mama every 5 seconds. They get their phone at the end of the school day, and then they got their phone the rest of the day. And then, mamas, you can track them because you have the global positioning system that will track them no matter where they go, so that if they call you and they're not where they claim they are, you'll know they're at the Queens Mall or they're at the Arby Square Mall. They're somewhere they shouldn't be. They're lying to you, and you can deal with them when they get home. But let's actually go back to the Bloomberg way of removing cell phones from the children and the young adults who go to our public school systems. I don't often have many nice things to say about Michael Bloomberg. Arrogant. I mean, oh man, so pretentious, omnipotent. But on this one, he was absolutely right. It's time to go back and take those cell phones away from the kids before the school day and give them back at the end of the school day. Another sad day for the NYPD, handcuffed by the likes of the Queensboro president, Donovan Richards, who loves to call everyone a racist, Bob Holden, councilman in Middle Village, the woman he beat to become borough president, Elizabeth Crowley. He was the head of the Public Safety Committee of the City Council. He did away with headlocks. You can't even grab a suspect now. There is a video out there now of what appears to be a migrant. I'm not sure. I got to lock down on this. And 2 cops are wrestling with him, it seems like in the rain, within the past 48 hours, and he gets away. And they're laughing at the cops in Spanish. But I'll do the deep dive. Nancy will do the deep dive. We'll find out if it was one of our own or if it was an illegal alien. But another sad day for the NYPD. And the question that everybody asks, why did they take away the nightsticks? Why did they take away the police nightsticks? When you see this, it'll make you want to cry. what they've done to our police department. First de Blasio, then Eric Adams. And now there's a new tactic. If anybody suggests that it's a migrant or an illegal alien who's committed a crime, they call it fear-mongering.
Great citizens.
But there's a lot of fear-mongering.
There's a lot of fear-mongering. Absolutely.
And I think it's kind of remarkable that the polls I look at, the national polls, actually Americans still support immigrants. They support immigration.
No, legal immigration. Legal immigration. Not illegals, not migrants coming across illegally. And then this has been, I must have heard it from about 40 different people in advance of the debate on Thursday.
Fear-mongering, 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 fear-mongering.
I ask again. Over a week ago, 6 guys were snatched up by the police outside of the Wyndham Hotel in Long Island City. That's the backyard of AOC Allow Crazy Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Her congressional district. 2 cops rolled up on them at 4:30 in the morning. There were 3 10-year-old kids outside playing. And the cops said, whose kids are these? Why are they out on the street? Why are you guys playing loud music and carousing around? And the 6 guys attacked the police. Attacked the police. Gave them a beat down. Where's the video? What is their country of origin? I've been asking for more than a week. It's in total lockdown. Can't get anything from City Hall. Can't get anything from the NYPD. Can't get anything from the Queens DA. Can't get anything. Because I would be accused of fear-mongering.
Fear-mongering, 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 fear-mongering.
We, as taxpayers for all this craziness, have a right to know. And just know, Curtis Sliwa and Nancy Sliwa are on the case. We'll find out who beat up our cops and got away with it.
Talking about this is the Rip and Read featuring Curtis Sliwa. Now to the Bernard McGurk studios of 77 WABC and Curtis Sliwa.
Noam Laden.
Yes.
My phone is blowing up from the deep dive that Nancy did with the cuts of Eric Adams that I played in the 11 o'clock hour when he spoke before a huge gathering at the Department of Education. I call it dumbest organization ever, with his Chancellor Banks right next to him like a bobblehead doll, noddingly, approvingly of everything he said. So many cuts that we played, but I just want to pick one cut out and just have you react to it.
Sure.
Because so far, everyone I played it for, Nancy woke me up. 2 o'clock in the morning, Nancy, you woke me up because you did the deep dive.
I never do that, yes, exactly.
I thought, oh my God, what
did you almost fall out of your chair at 2 this morning when you found that clip?
No, I was going livid when I heard it. I was like, I have to wake him up so he can hear this too.
She does the deep dive. You don't want Nancy doing a deep dive.
No. No, we've seen that over the last months or so.
Listen to this. Okay. This is in a large group. He's saying this of members of the DOE, his chancellor, teachers, some of the kids.
I mean, what are we thinking about? We have a city with all of these different nationalities, all of these different languages. The brain development of a child would acquire a different language at an early age better than waiting until they become an adult. And we're not leaning into that. That's the arrogance of a European mindset that the only language that should be known is one language, English. These babies should learn all these different languages to communicate with each other.
The arrogance of the European mindset.
Yeah.
You know where I've heard that over and over?
I can tell you because I've heard it over and over, maybe in the same place. At Farrakhan rallies, he refers to my people a lot of times when he doesn't want to use the word Jew. He calls them Europeans.
Yeah. You know what that means? White Ashkenazi Jewish teachers teaching our children English, which is the international language. People want to learn English in third world countries because it's the language of computers, of the economy, of everything. They'll come to America specifically to learn English.
Of course.
But I would suggest they don't listen to me on the radio. I tell cab drivers that all the time. It's not the kind of English you want to know.
They should listen to me, actually.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But see, that was your visceral reaction right away. And he thought he got away with that. And then Nancy found the other cuts, which I played. We'll play at the end of this hour if you happen to miss it in the 11 o'clock hour. It is so anti-white. It is so anti-Jewish. And it's coming out of the mouth of our mayor who speaks with forked tongue. He says, I like white people. I love Jews. But then he says this at an educational gathering of many, many different kind of people.
And everyone's applauding, too.
Including some of your own peeps.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Probably they're young. They don't know what that code language is. Because remember, Eric Adams was a supporter of Farrakhan. He went to the rallies. He went with Conrad Muhammad to the mosque up in Harlem. He had Farrakhan endorse him to run against Major Owens for Congress. And the reason he ran against Major Owens is he said, you're too friendly to the Jews. And he had the Nation of Islam gathering signatures for him to run. See, I don't forget.
Yeah. Good thing, by the way, that you don't forget.
My God. Meantime, there's a video I'm going to share with you and James Flippin. It's going to make you cry. Our NYPD, 2 uniformed police officers out of their car, struggling with what appears to be a migrant. Not sure, but the background language, it's all Spanish, the people who are filming it. And they're struggling desperately to get hold of him. They don't have any nightsticks. They've taken him away. They're not permitted to put him in a headlock, any kind of body hold. You look at it and you say, what do you expect our cops to do? And the guy is able to get away and he's running. And the crowd is cheering and one of the cops is seriously injured. Seriously injured.
Now, where was this?
Well,
no.
Okay. I'm going to let you and James Flippin.
Okay, look at it.
You will cry. What Bill de Blasio and Eric Adams and Donovan Richards, him, the Queensboro president, when he was head of the Public Safety Committee and City Council, he led the effort to ban the fact that you can even put your hands on a suspect and take him down and hold him. And they took the nightsticks away. See, it used to be, if you were having a problem with somebody, you hit him in the kneecap and you would tell the rest of the cops when they got there, it's probably a guy limping down the block, pick him up.
And it was probably the safest way, in some ways, to knock these guys down.
Or you take the nightstick out and you hold it out, and everybody knew, hey, the cop means business now. Don't cross that line. They have rendered our cops impotent.
How long has the nightstick been gone? I feel like it's been before I even started doing news in New York.
De Blasio.
It was de Blasio got rid of the nightstick?
De Blasio got rid of it. Meantime, Nancy, you who are in Central Park like all the time, day and night, she's reported to me that it's really sketchy there now.
So, this is yesterday. A 21-year-old was sunbathing around 1:30 p.m. and a man started to approach her who wasn't wearing any clothing. She starts screaming, running away from him. Then he ran after her and tackled her.
Yikes.
Now, thankfully, she was able to fight him off and get away, and then he ran because she was, making a scene as it was, and he's escaped, but he's still on the loose, and apparently now you can't sunbathe in the park anymore.
Outrageous.
There are people living in the park. The mayor denies that, but he's never in the park.
They live in the Rambles. I've seen that.
These are emotionally disturbed homeless men, many of them with severe problems, who are preying on people in the park on a regular basis. It would be very easy to take them out, get them the help they need. You can't sleep in the park. There's a curfew in the park. You can't be in the park.
So why aren't they putting them into institutions or just taking them out of the park for that matter?
Why do you think? No. Because everything with Eric Adams is camouflage. He'll say all the right things. Say, we're all out there in force. We're going to be here until this stops. You're never going to stop it unless you remove the people who are living in the park, many of them emotionally disturbed. I'll bet you many of them with serious criminal records. And they live right in the park. And there's no enforcement of the curfew. None.
And this poor woman, it was a spectacular day yesterday. Yeah. I could see why somebody would want to lie out. She was in a beautiful part of the park.
Yeah, 104th Street and right near West Drive.
Right.
So, a place that there's a lot of people walking there. Now, they made a point of saying she was by herself, so I don't know if that means...
Why should that matter?
Well, maybe that's the NYPD's next way of saying, women, when you go to the park, make sure you go with somebody for safety.
It was the middle of the day, right?
Yeah, 1:30. 1:30.
I think... one thing you can make that argument, I guess, after dark, but not at 1:40 in the afternoon.
The guy is walking around with no clothes on.
Yeah.
Nancy, the other day, outside of our apartment, took a photograph late at night. A guy walking around, white guy, with no clothes on. This suspect was black they're looking for in Central Park. Would you describe what this guy...
Not too much description.
Yeah, well, he was in his 60s. When I saw him walking down the street, I was just taken aback because all he had on was shoes. And then when he came back down the street, I saw him. Now he had on like an overcoat, but he was still naked. So he just looked like he was taking like an evening stroll, like any day, New York City.
It's been so brutally hot, minus yesterday, and you can imagine what that does to somebody who's already, has issues, mental health issues. Now they're homeless, mental health issues. And they're boiling hot, and then you get these episodes. I'm not giving these people a pass by any means, but you can understand how it might happen.
And they need water to hydrate. Where are they going to get water from?
Nowhere.
Where are they going to get water? That's why I tell people, if you want to help them, don't give them money. Don't, because they're going to use it for drugs or booze. Don't give them food. And I know, why not give them food? They need water. They need to hydrate.
And apparently pants, too.
Yeah.
I mean, they're walking around with no clothes on.
Yeah.
And at times, they're proving to women that they're not suffering from erectile dysfunction.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's never the people you want to see with the clothes off.
Well, of course. That's like a nude beach. It's the same thing. It sounds exciting in theory, but when you get there, you're like, okay.
But notice, most of these crimes are against women. 50 women get punched in the face in Lower Manhattan.
Well, because they're cowards in the end. They go for somebody they can take out.
Right, and they're emotionally disturbed. But this mayor of ours says, hey, crime is down. We're not surviving, we're thriving. Yeah, if you're a guy, if you're a woman, you're like Bambi in the middle of hunting season wearing an orange fluorescent vest for every perv, every predator, every criminal, every thug.
And we're going through the string of really a number of real sicko attacks in just a few weeks, right? Casino Park, that awful crime. Mm-hmm. Thankfully, they found the person behind that one, but it's these crimes that I don't remember happening as often as they're happening now.
And the randomness of it too, right? Like, I think everyone in New York City, you think, if you're out late at night or maybe, certain sketchy areas, now it's everywhere all the time throughout the day. So I think that sort of element of surprise is really getting people.
But have no fear. The mayor was protecting women at the Capri in Southampton this weekend. 2 days of frolicking.
Frolicking he was.
With women in Southampton. Partying to the break of dawn.
And I imagine raising some cash there, too?
Of course, for his legal defense fund, because the walls are closing in. And believe it or not, the hubris of this guy for his re-election effort. But you see all the photos that Sal Greco had collected and then posted, and then we reposted it and shared it. They're all women there smiling. He's embracing them. It's like, why don't you spend some time protecting the women of New York City who are under attack? What the hell are you doing out in the Hamptons?
I guess those ones aren't inviting him to the parties.
Yeah, if you want to be protected by the mayor of the city of New York, you got to invite him to a party.
Right.
To the break of dawn.
Curtis Sliwa. Curtis Sliwa. Rip and Read. Check this out. This is the Rip and Read featuring Curtis Sliwa.
Talking about
Now to the Bernard McGurk studios of 77 WABC and Curtis Sliwa. This is the Rip and Read.
I like to be in America. Okay, by me in America. Everything free in America.
For a small fee in America.
Everything free, free, free. Because here in New York City, we get the invoice, we get the bills. $4 billion this year alone for migrants, some of whom were outsourced to other parts of the state where we still pay for them. We still pay to house them, feed them, clothe them, give them iPhones, smartphones, health insurance, and culturally appropriate food in Erie County, Albany County, all throughout New York State. But I see, Nancy, that those upstate communities have said enough is enough. The people you've sent us are causing all kinds of problems, and we're packing them up. We're putting them back on the buses and sending them back to you at the Roosevelt Hotel in New York City.
Yeah, so apparently there's 1,500 migrants who live outside New York City. This is part of just a placement. So, everyone was taking their little fair share, but apparently all of these upstate communities have decided, well, this was only supposed to be a temporary thing. We really weren't supposed to house them forever. So now that the school year has ended, we're sending them back to New York City, which is better equipped to handle them.
It means they thought at first they could make a lot of money on them. Remember, $125 a day to house one migrant a day. I mean, you start figuring out some of these towns.
Well, that's the upstate one, but in down here, it's $384 a day.
Exactly. But a lot of these little towns, boroughs, and villages thought that, wow, man, we can really supplement our budget on the backs of these illegals that are being sent up to us by New York, and New York City is paying for all their bills. And even they have said enough is enough. It ain't worth the money. It's too much of a headache. And now reports that we are going to have a permanent migrant class here in New York City, housed in brick and mortar and tents, maybe in perpetuity. And Eric Adams, swagger man with no plan, told us, no, it's temporary. Well, guess what? We're going to be paying these bills maybe forever.
Well, definitely it is, because Adams has come out of the craziness of trying to call it an emergency contract because the no bids are not acceptable anymore. So now he's creating legitimate open-ended contracts with the city to continue to house them and do all the ancillary services, right? So the initial right to shelter was simply for the shelter and the food. So the services that have gradually been added over the couple years include the case management, the child care planning, laundry, security guards, food servers, all of these different businesses now that have been born from this crisis are making so much money that they're now going to be an ingrained part. So the city has $4.7 billion allotted for this year. They've already upped the amount for 2025, another $1 billion, because they're saying, well, there's just so many services we have to continue offering. And they're even factoring into 2026, 2027. So there is no end in sight, according to how long we're going to be housing and also providing all these other services.
You say an Eric Adams contract. I say follow the kickbacks. Follow the kickbacks. Billions. Look, there is a video that I'm sharing, but we did not take, but it's viral now, that I'm sharing with our news director, Noam Laden and James Flippin, to see if they could track it down. It will make you cry. It appears the cops are struggling with a migrant in the street. Not sure if it's a migrant or just one of our homegrown Spanish-speaking citizens. But there's laughing in the background. They're filming it. This guy gets up and escapes. One cop is seriously injured. The other cop is helping his partner. No nightsticks. They can't put him in a headlock. They can't even grab him. And it's like, you say enough is enough. This powder puff policing with migrants and everyone else. And the NYPD has been rendered impotent by this mayor and the previous mayor. But then there is the issue of the Wyndham Hotel. 6 of these migrants were arrested, and we have yet to learn what their background is, because I believe they may have already been released. And they attacked police officers at 4:30 in the morning over a week ago, who were coming up to them. They were playing loud music. They were drinking. They were smoking weed. They had 3 10-year-olds out unattended. And they said, you got to bring the kids inside and you got to knock off the music and stop with the smoking and drinking. And these migrants said, F you, and attacked the police. Initial arrests. Haven't heard anything since. I've been knocking on everybody's door. But the new policy of the Adams administration, of Holcomb, of Joe Biden, who know that this is their Achilles heel in this presidential year, that if there's an election tomorrow, Donald Trump wins overwhelmingly because of this migrant issue. This is the new buzzword that they use.
Fear-mongering, 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 fear-mongering.
Now 10 days. We've yet to know what country they're from. I would bet you they're from Venezuela, where 9 out of 10 of the criminal migrants come from. because they were released out of the jails by Maduro in Venezuela and the insane asylums, just like Fidel Castro did his own back in 1980, and they went into the hands of Jimmy Carter, the soft one, who then embraced the Mariolitos, and it was a crime wave like we've never experienced before, and now it's happening all over again. They're not Cubans, they're Venezuelans, but Nancy and I will stay on the case. We will find out who they are and what happened to them.
Now to the Bernard McGurk studios of 77 WABC and Curtis Sliwa.
Curtis doesn't know about you, but he rips and reads.
This is the Rip and Read.
We don't get fooled again. No, no. I move myself and my family aside. If we happen to be left half alive, I'll get all my papers and smile at the sky. Oh, I know that the hypnotized never lie.
I don't trust Democrats or Republicans. I don't trust our government. Whenever you have a whistleblower out there, even in the private sector, they've got a scarlet letter on them to the ends of time. It's the only way we find out what's going on. Think of it, the Pentagon Papers. Oh, my God, what they did to that guy. We found all the dirt about the war in Vietnam. Ellsberg was right. Nixon, LBJ, and the war machine was wrong. But anyway, let's speed up the time to Julian Assange. We were made to believe he was public enemy number one, that he was working for the Russians, for Putin, Russian disinformation, the whole 9 yards. Hillary Rodham Clinton was his main nemesis, who said that the release of documents about a war in Iraq would jeopardize men and women out there in the field and cause their demise and their deaths. This was Hillary on a stage with Bill being interviewed talking about Julian Assange when Donald Trump was president.
Look, I'll wait and see what happens with the charges and how it proceeds. But he skipped bail in the UK. Sweden had those charges, which have been dropped in the last several years.
Trumped up charges. Imagine the Swedes were going to charge him with rape. He was in a hot tub with 3 Swedish women. And he couldn't even get them to publicly come out and say that he had sexually assaulted them or raped them. They just wanted to jam this guy up. And then Hillary just blamed Trump, believe it or not, like everything else. It's Trump.
But the bottom line is he has to answer for what he has done, at least as it's been charged. I do think it's a little ironic that he may be the only foreigner that this administration would welcome to the United States.
Sounds like your cackle, Justin Ellick. You're from Chappaqua, the whitest suburb in America, where even the long jockeys are white, and the love shack of Bill and Hillary are there. You have that same chortle, that same cackle. But coming to the rescue of Julian Assange, like so many others, but she had access to him when he stayed in the Ecuadorian embassy in London, because if he had stepped outside, that's it, he would have been deported to the United States and probably faced the death penalty, was Pam Anderson.
You visit him, don't you, quite a bit? Yeah. Are you allowed to tell us what you talk about? Or?
Well, I think he's a very important person, and I think that history will look back at him and realize how important he is, and I think his WikiLeaks is very heroic.
Extraordinarily heroic, extraordinarily important. Our government started a propaganda war because he released so many documents that showed us that our government was lying to us, like Russian disinformation, when the 51 different former heads of national security agencies signed that letter that Joe Biden waved around at one of the debates against President Trump at the time and said, see, All these people say that laptop, Russian disinformation. And just recently we heard absolutely not. Nancy, you and I have been supporters of Julian Assange for a long time, and you more so than even me. Can you give us a bit of a timeline here?
Yeah, so he was, in 2012 is when he fled to the Ecuadorian embassy in London. That was to escape the extradition in Sweden. He remained in the embassy for 7 years until he was ultimately arrested in 2019 when Ecuador withdrew its asylum and they allowed the UK police to enter the building. Then since then, he's been at Belmarsh, which is one of Britain's highest security prisons, where he's been confined to a cell 23 hours a day and 1 hour in the prison yard. So that's been since 2019. Now, after these extensive negotiations, finally, he has agreed to plead guilty to one charge of the indictment, conspiracy to disseminate national defense information. That's going to allow him, with the time served, that's how they're viewing all the time that he's been in the prison, and he will then be able to be free in Australia.
God, all these years, housed in a cell, Belmarsh, right? You said
yeah, correct. Mm-hmm.
That is the maximum security jail in the UK. It is not a place you want to be sent. IRA prisoners were sent there and basically languished away. So many others. It is a bad place. And they desperately wanted, the United States wanted him deported to the United States when you had the administration of Barack Obama. They desperately wanted it. Secretary of State Hillary Rodham Clinton wanted. The only reason that they did not deport him, anyone in Europe, was because they knew he would face the death penalty. He would be assigned to Leavenworth, and then he would be subject to the death penalty. Hillary Rodham Clinton was telling us, all these documents will lead to the death in battle of Americans, men and women, in not only the battlefields of Iraq, but against ISIS and Syria, wherever we are. He's released information that jeopardizes all of our operations. I don't know of anybody who's ever made the claim that any one of those documents he released actually led to anybody's death involved with our activities in the Middle East or the Persian Gulf.
And he was able to publicize a lot of other really interesting things that I'm pretty sure they, the powers that be really didn't want him to, such as National Security Agency obtaining a patent in August 1999 for voice data harvesting technology. And how that makes sense is, think about all the things now where you have the automated ring system, anything on your phone. All of this information can be tapped, transcribed, and archived by the National Security Agency. So that type of information, too, is something that they don't want to get out.
Well, remember, there was the case of Eric Snowden. Eric Snowden was subcontracted by the National Security Agency of then James Clapper, who was the National Security Agency director for Barack Obama. And Eric Snowden said, hey, we're spying on Americans. We are spying on Americans. We are using all of this technology not to spy on our enemies or people we think are spies for foreign governments. And remember, every nation doesn't just spy on their enemies, they spy on their allies. I mean, sometimes we spy more on our allies than we do our enemies. And Eric Snowden was the whistleblower, like Julian Assange. And he goes, we're spying on Americans.
There you go, exactly.
James Clapper came before a Senate House committee, took the oath, swore that we're not spying on Americans. Clap on, clap off, and he was lying. He was caught lying. And so then we vilified Eric Snowden. And he went and he lived in Russia. He was given sanctuary there. So, see, he's been working with Putin all that time. No, we drove him out of our country. We made him persona non grata. He feared for his life, and rightfully so. Do you trust the CIA criminals in action? Hell no. They probably would have killed the guy. So, of course, Putin is going to give him sanctuary. He's our enemy. But, oh, my God, Julian Assange we vilified. And you know why Hillary wanted him back desperately? I'll get you, my little pretty. It's the last thing I do. In fact, if you can, Lou, play that last cut of Hillary out of the two cuts. I want you to hear her cackle at the end of what she had to say about Julian Assange when Trump was president and she and Bill were sitting on a stage and Bill was completely quiet because he was Hillary Rodham Clinton's Maytag.
But the bottom line is he has to answer for what he has done, at least as it's been charged. I do think it's a little ironic that he may be the only foreigner that this administration would welcome to the United States.
That annoying chortle. She's like Giggles Harris, the vice president. They laugh at the most inappropriate of times. And let's face it, in addition to everything we just described, he was able to secure the emails of Hillary Rodham Clinton's election effort against Donald Trump and leak them. Like, remember, every day. It didn't cost her the election, but it certainly gave us insight to all the nefarious activities of Team Hillary Rodham Clinton in order to get her elected president.
And how dysfunctional they were.
That's right, in 2016. And she was embarrassed by that. Her own husband told her she lost the election because she didn't go out there and campaign in Michigan, in Minnesota, in Wisconsin. At the end, she decided, Bill, I'm taking the lead on this. We're not going out there and aggressively campaigning. And the most surprised guy in the world was Donald Trump. On election night, he was elected president because he out-hustled her in the end. And the woman who was in a fetal position at Jacob Javits Convention Center thinking she was going to get the adulation of an adoring group of Democratic supporters that she was president. And it took her like 10 days for them to somehow get her out of that fetal position. And then she went back to walking through the forests of Chappaqua with a Starbucks in her hand, channeling to Eleanor Roosevelt, saying, Eleanor, how could this happen? How could this happen? We got to blame somebody, so we're going to blame Julian Assange. Thank God he's out and free finally.
This is the Rip and Read featuring Curtis Sliwa. Now to the Bernard McGurk studios of 77 WABC and Curtis Sliwa.
Teach your children well. Their father's help did slowly go by.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have this video that's going viral. 2 police officers assaulted. We don't know if it's a migrant or one of our citizens. Nancy sent it to the duo at Cop Talk, great podcast at WABC, Captain Mamet and Detective Kevin Sheening. And hopefully they can track it down because, again, poor police department has been handcuffed by our elected officials who tell them, tough noogies, figure out a way to arrest these guys. Anyway, one of those officials is Eric Adams, who I guess assumed that nobody would end up listening to his speech yesterday at the Department of Education, a.k.a. dumbest organization anywhere, where they have spent $36 billion of a $108 billion city budget. That's 1/3 of our budget. And under Chancellor Banks, it has become the house of anti-Semitism, and if you're white, you ain't right. Listen to the mayor as he harkens back the rhetoric of his hero in the 90s, Louis Farrakhan.
I mean, what are we thinking about? We have a city with all of these different nationalities, all of these different languages. The brain development of a child would acquire a different language at an early age better than waiting until they become an adult. And we're not leaning into that. That's the arrogance of a European mindset that the only language that should be known is one language, English. These babies should learn all these different languages to communicate with each other.
The European mindset, a.k.a. white, a.k.a. Ashkenazi Jews, who are the predominant number of teachers. Could I hear that in its shorter form, its truncated form, Lou?
That's the arrogance of a European mindset that the only language that should be known is one language, English.
I thought everybody around the world wants to learn English now.
Yeah, and you might want to start with that. Just a suggestion.
Yeah, before you teach them other languages.
Yeah, they're kind of struggling with English as it is.
the international language of business, of computers, of everything is English. I mean, third world countries, they struggle. They want to learn English.
I remember when my grandfather came here, and they spoke Polish predominantly. They were learning English. They would only let you speak English in the house because they were so proud of being in America.
That's true. In my household, the only time they would speak Italian, Nancy, is when they didn't want me to know what they were talking about, which was usually me. Other than that, my grandfather Fidel Bianchino would say, speak English. This is America. This is not Italy. Wow. You had that same situation. I'm sure many of our listeners did. He said this yesterday, and they applauded him. Many of them white Jewish teachers, young, who probably don't know the history of that statement, going back to when Albert Shanker, very liberal, progressive, democratic, head of the UFT, pulled all the teachers out, went on strike in 1968, had nothing to do with salary. It had to do with the fact that black-centric activists wanted all the white Jewish teachers out of the school system, and he said, that's it. We're going out on strike. I remember I experienced that. And then he drops another one, and his chancellor of the Department of Education banks like a bobblehead doll, shaking his head up and down in agreement.
The reason Chancellor Banks and his team wanted to change the books that our children read, because the authors do not look like them, do not know their narratives, and do not appreciate the diversity that comes with developing the full personhood of a child.
Notice he didn't say add to the reading list, which I get. Asians, black, Hispanic, writers, authors. I want you to play that game again, Lou. He said what him and Banks want to do is to get rid of all the books that we were brought up on, and the hipsters and millennials to a degree, that were authored by whites.
The reason Chancellor Banks and his team wanted to change the books that our children read, because the authors do not look like them, do not know their narratives, and do not appreciate the diversity that comes with developing the full personhood of a child.
So he wants black, Hispanic authors and authoresses to replace whites who've written books like To Kill a Mockingbird, Harper Lee. I didn't read the book. I saw the movie.
I read the book.
Seems to me that you had a lawyer there who was taking on a lot of racists in the protection of an African American. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, exactly. They might have understood a little bit about it.
But no. It's a white author, Harper Lee. And then The Great Gatsby, about the Long Island experience that Eric Adams loves. He was out in the Hamptons all weekend partying, as if it were The Great Gatsby, right?
Yes.
In 1984, God forbid the kids read about George Orwell. This is exactly what the Adams administration is doing now to reporters, to citizens, drones, encryption so you can't hear what's going on in terms of crime on your scanners, the application, you're always on that crime app.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Citizens
app, yeah.
Citizens app, which will be no longer have that information of mice and men, John Steinbeck. This is the real mayor. This is the way he was when he loved Farrakhan.